Welcome to Highly Affected by Her Surroundings, the podcast where we reveal how your environment can make or break your day. Hosted by me, Nicole, owner and lead designer at Arnix and Interiors. Okay, so today I am here with my dear friend Antonio. Antonio and I met at High Point Market 2 markets ago, I believe. He was a speaker on a panel, and I may have stalked him in the next showroom afterwards to talk to him a little bit. And then after that, we connected and we've stayed friends. So, Antonio, let's give everybody kind of your background, who you are, what makes you awesome.
First of all, huge congratulations to you, highly affected by her surroundings. I mean, kudos to you for just ripping the Band-Aid off and launching your passion project and being able to give us all a space that we can just have fun, relax, and dive deep into this industry. Yes, you stalked me a little bit, and I'm so grateful that you did. That's the fun of High Point Market, right? You just never know who you're going to connect with, where the next friendship is going to take you. Then we ended up at Luann Live together, and the journey continues. So to everybody listening, I'm Antonio Deloatch. We run Antonio Deloatch Designs. We're here in the big city of Manhattan. Moved back from LA just shy of 3 years ago, and we are tackling New York City. I am super excited to be here today and kind of dive deep in some tips, tricks, all the little secrets that we have in our back pocket.
This is so fun, and thank you for that. I know you are one of my biggest cheerleaders. Whenever I have a dilemma or a question or just need an ego boost, I'm like, hey, can you talk? And you always give your time. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. I mean, this industry is hard, right? I mean, as entrepreneurs, we're like isolated and in a silo. So when someone reaches out, you never know what's happening on the other side. And I feel that way sometimes where I'm just like in this big world kind of operating and having these like, morning meetings with myself and and my fiance's like, you okay? And I'm like, we good. But I'm happy to be the recipient on the other end and to have a friend like you to ping pong with.
Well, thank you. And I feel like we really have almost two very different experiences. I'm in a town with very few designers and very few nearby or close enough to grab, coffee or lunch or really to compete with, where you're in New York City. There's, multiple designers in every condo building, townhouse. How is that?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds overwhelming, but I still feel like we're kind of like unicorns, right? Like when somebody meets me and they're like, you're an interior designer, oh my God. And I'm like, okay, calm down, take 2 steps back. It's okay. And I can't solve all your life problems right now. But I think that there are some designers that are definitely welcoming. The community here in New York is way different than LA. And I'm super grateful for it because that's where I started to launch my brand and expand my business here in New York, was by going directly into that community head on. And they've been so friendly and have like literally let me in with open arms. And in return, I've got friends at Luxe Magazine, to Elle Decor, to showrooms that we frequent. It's kind of mind blowing. And I can't imagine, maybe I can a little bit because LA was kind of siloed the way that you are, even though that I'm sure there's a handful of designers around you, maybe, correct me if I'm wrong. But LA felt really isolating. Like there wasn't a lot of other designers around.
Well, speaking of LA, I'm from California, not LA,
Yeah.
but I know the differences between West Coast, East Coast. But I would love if you could kind of dive in and really tell us kind of what are some of the main differences between your clients that you had, out in California versus your New York City clients?
I don't know if we have enough time on this podcast today to break that down. But I mean, Cali is an interesting place. And, I was very fortunate to have some amazing Hollywood celebrity clients. But I thought about this question this morning, and like young money is different on both coasts,
Mhm.
and old money is different on both coasts. And I just think it boils down to what is our lifestyle and how are we using our homes. I'm sure you can see the difference from California to Florida where you are now.
Yes. And, I was in Atlanta for a while. So I feel like I've kind of, all three really dictate my personal design style. So I can only imagine how you're influenced from both as well.
Yeah, I feel like we're always pivoting. I've always found the question really interesting when a person that you meet at a cocktail party or at a design event and they're like, "What's your style?" I've never really had a definitive answer to that because I feel like I'm always in response to my surroundings, the city, and the home and what the client is asking for, right? So it's like, how do we find that like medium, like almost like a therapist, right? It's like, well, it's a mid-century modern in Indianapolis, and you're from Nigeria and live in LA now. So like we're responding to all of those things.
No, that is really, really true. And I'm sure the clients that are drawn to you, many of them probably have that kind of move around experience or, different cultural backgrounds or different hobbies or different things they really want to lean into.
Yeah, it's always fun. I mean, you kind of just meet people where they are, and I don't know. I mean, I've traveled to over 27 different countries. I've lived in Hong Kong. I mean, it's like that's the part that excites me. Is like how can we create a home that's like super functional for someone and like take all of that life experience and create like a dope, amazing space for them to live in.
No, I love that. So, what would you say are some design elements that you get requested from a majority of your clients, really wherever they are in the world?
I would say kitchens are a big one. I think kitchens are kind of like this universal language. We all use them a little differently, but they're this like universal hub in a household, kind of no matter where you go in the world. Um, so I think that that's one thing that kind of starts the conversation, and whether or not that's the project we tackle first or not. I kind of love to just understand like what is the central part of your home and how are you using it? Is it the kitchen? If it's not, then where is it? And then we kind of launch from there.
So, then what would be in like your dream kitchen?
What would be in my dream kitchen? That list is really long. I love to cook. I love to entertain. I don't know. I did a training at Monogram Appliances in Chicago, and some of their appliances are so tech savvy that kind of just blows my mind that you can get steam, convection, air fry, like all of the things into a gadget or an appliance. And so, I don't know, I think it would have to be strong, beautiful backsplashes or countertops, a good oven, you know, I don't know. I like a dinner party of 20 or more. So like you gotta be able to have the space in the oven. That's the one thing my mom has always blown my mind on is how she still serves hot food to that many people.
And that's one thing I think Monogram has been a great design partner for so many of us. They are always, like easy to work with. They stay up with the trends. We've used them in probably a dozen kitchens in the past year or two. And you're right. Like what they can make all of us a good cook if we just can kind of follow a few steps. But I would love to be invited to one of your dinner parties.
Yes, please. I mean, are you tapping into like when you're designing a home, are you tapping into any of that technology now with like some of the apps? Are you having that request?
It's funny because you have some that are super into it, love the idea of being able to preheat the oven while they're picking their kids up from school.
Sure.
But then you have the others who are like, well, what if, the technology falters or what if? So we get both. I think you have the concerns. I love the idea of the technology. I love the idea of a smart home that helps simplify your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I don't like to
I would
fighting it.
I really look forward to KBiz this year because from what I've read, there's going to be some vendors with some really, really cool stuff.
Yeah, I'm tempted to take my fiance with me because he's in tech, and we've got like a mini smart house, and I share the big picture ideas that's coming out in this industry, and from just the directions of like what you can do with water to
Mhm.
your oven to the apps on your phone. So I'm excited for KBiz too. I've actually never attended KBiz.
Yeah, so we'll definitely have to hook up for it and figure out what our plans are. But I would say, I mean, kind of going back to, I know you've done a bunch of celebrity homes. I know NDAs were like part of what you did, but I feel like not necessarily pulling like a current celebrity, but like somebody from the past or somebody like historically, like if you could have designed their home, who would you have loved to design a home for?
Mm. I kind of really would love to just walk Oprah's compound.
Yes. The Montecito?
Yes. First of all,
Yes.
I've done a deep dive on this property on anything that I could possibly find. Montecito is just such a beautiful place. And the fact that she had this vision for a house that wasn't so sexy, but she's really made it her sanctuary and then has kind of like bought property adjacent to it. Like, I would just love to be able to wander on her compound and just dream and vision of like what I could do to it. Because I just think it's a beautiful piece of land.
So I know Oprah loves to have people over for tea and coffee. So this is the shout out for Antonio to get an invite for that.
Yes, let's talk about the reach. Oprah, I'm always available. Happy to have.
Yes. I have about 8 years ago drove like the outskirts of her property there. And what, like you said, Montecito is just a really, really neat, well thought out community.
Yeah.
So that would be really, really cool.
Do you have a
Okay.
celebrity like house crush design dream?
I would love to do like kind of that 1980s country, like just the old, like Western kind of star,
Okay.
as cheesy as it is, but like some sort of ranch, just something where you can super lean into that kind of like old school vibe would be really cool.
Cool.
Um, I think some of the past, just people that, 'cause they didn't have social media then.
No.
Like, so there was not really a huge reason for any of these people. Their homes weren't being displayed, but if you pick up like an old AD mag,
Yeah.
some of the houses in there are just,
So good.
they're good because they designed for
Yeah.
themselves. They didn't design for anyone else because nobody else beyond like family or friends was seeing it. It wasn't like they were going live on Instagram every morning.
Right.
They designed what they wanted.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that has just kind of possibly disappeared some.
Yeah. I just like did a deep dive on airlines from like 20, 30 years ago and how sexy airplanes.
Yes.
And I was like, how did we get to where we are today? Like, why am I sitting in this ugly blue leather seat? Like, I don't understand. And yeah, I mean, to see the televisions, to the velvet, to the lounges, to the outfits, I'm like, how did we get so far away from that?
So the question that I was going to wrap up all of this with was if you could pick something like a space to completely reimagine an event. Mine was like movie theaters.
Mm,
I love the idea of a movie theater being this experience, this kind of you dress up, you go sit, you eat good food,
yeah,
movie theater. But what it is not that. Even the nicer ones in the nicer towns.
yeah.
So I feel like for you, is it airlines and, flying?
I kind of have a crush on like the idea of doing a really sexy airplane. I had sat next to another interior designer at High Point Market at a fabulous York wall covering dinner, and she's out of Texas. And she's done like 3 or 4 private jets, and I swear we just sat at dinner all night long, just talking about like what's that process like. And she's giving me model numbers and a 783-45, and I'm like, I was all in. And just the idea of like being able to take that level of luxury to the sky, I don't know, it kind of is exciting to go back to what it used to be.
And I could totally see you doing a yacht as well. So add that to your manifest
Are we
board and then
manifesting
pick
on
me
this
up.
podcast? I think we need to change the title. We're just here manifesting. I love it.
Yes, so fun. Okay, so basically, I mean, okay, back to that. Like, if you could design a luxury retreat for yourself, like, what would you want at this retreat? Like, if they're like, hey, Antonio, you get to pick 10 friends and go to whatever country you want, and you guys have 4 days to do whatever you want, what would it look like?
Yeah, so I think that it really is, it's like the all encompassing, right? So it's like scent, like you walk into a good hotel and just that, like, I mean, I have meandered down spa hallways and are like, can I please buy this candle? And they're like, no. I'm like, what is it? I think it's like activating all four senses. There's beautiful islands off the coast of Lisbon in Portugal that I think would maybe be the destination for this dream retreat. I have a good friend of mine in Jersey who's a compass agent, and we're always sending each other like abandoned properties. And there was an abandoned hotel in the Azores outside of Lisbon, and him and I were just going back and forth all day one afternoon. And we're like, could you imagine what this could be? And just to see this thing, the shell of beautiful architecture, completely just sitting there covered in moss and leaves, and you could just imagine, right, from texture to scent to sound. And I think really great hotels that do that are like the One Hotel. Have you ever experienced the One Hotel?
Mm-mm.
God, like a One Hotel and the Proper, between what Ellie
Yes.
Wursler's mind does to what the One Hotel does. Like, I met the design team of the One Hotel for Brooklyn, and it took them 6 years to design that hotel at the bottom of the Brooklyn Bridge. And I mean, they're putting full size trees in the lobby. It's like you're fully immersed in that whole experience. So I don't know. I think a health wellness retreat would encompass a little bit of all of that. So hold on to your seats because there's a vision board for that. So
What a dream. So we've stayed at the Austin proper, and that was amazing. Last time I was in New York, I stayed at the Pendry.
oh, I've never stayed there.
And that really was a treat. The staff was amazing. It was the decor, not to the level of like the proper hotels, like not necessarily Kelly Wersler direction, but it was still so well done. Uh, but yes, okay. So now that we're down that hole, what are some other hotels that you love?
Here in New York City, I would say I love the Plaza Hotel. So like I love to go and be able to have tea in like an old setting.
That is a throwback.
I love the Plaza. And so I love to just like either spoil myself with a glass of champagne and just sit in the lobby or have tea. One of those two. We also love the London Hotel, the Edition in London. So
Okay.
the Edition is probably one of my favorites. It gives that like old school level of service, with some modern amenities and a Michelin star restaurant for breakfast, which really is not a bad thing to kind of indulge in. So I would say those are probably a couple of my favorites.
Is this your fiance in the background?
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was that or you got a dog. So I was going to say, let me see him.
I mean, we could do both.
Okay. What about out in California? Where do you guys like to stay?
So Martin Boyard, he's actually got a small boutique hotel outside of Palm Springs.
Ooh.
And that's probably one of my favorites. I'll have to share that for you to link that in the notes on the name of that. It's small. It's like maybe 20 rooms. And, just to step into the mind of Martin and experience that with like this heated pool under the stars in Palm Springs is one of our favorite like little weekend getaways. And then there's another vineyard south of San Diego that we really like to stay at, and it's right on the Mexican border. And they do these like modern container homes, and so it's called Relief. So I'll have to share both of those for you to link those in the bio for this one.
Yes, I would love to link all of your favorites, and I'll include some of mine too, because I know we all don't get a ton of time to travel. Like, as much as we love it, it's just not always feasible. So when we do get to stay somewhere, it's always worth staying somewhere special.
Yeah, I mean, figuring out how to use the hotel points, you know, the airline miles, all of the things, right, to splurge. And there have been moments where maybe I'll stay in the 3 star next to the 5 star, just to be able to like immerse myself, because that's really where we're getting like our inspiration from. And I love to study high end hotels. And like I said, if I can't afford the $1,200 a night, I'll stay at the hotel directly next door to it. So this way that I'm able to get, you know, the feel, the vibe without the price tag.
I agree with that. And I've told other designers as well, like with what we do a lot of purchasing. So it's like find the credit cards that can give you the perks to then use them on the hotels, figure out the flights. It's really worth. I know you and I talked, we're both Marriott.
Yeah,
Like I lean into a Marriott if I'm whether it's an airport hotel or High Point or vacation with the family, it's worth getting those points and it's worth, figuring it out. And you can get the upgrades because they see your status or, Amex does their fine hotels
yeah.
and you get a lot of perks there. So being in the design industry and as someone who just said she's highly affected by her surroundings, like I want my hotel to serve me and inspire me.
I agree 100%. And we just kind of went down the IG rabbit hole the other day. And there was this young girl who travels for free all the time. And she was saying that like every airline has their own online mall. And when you shop with their own online mall, like not only are you double dipping with your credit card points, but you're also gaining additional miles by shopping through their online mall. So like Sephora, Delta's got their own Sephora mall. So we're just over here dropping gems. Like I want to see everybody who's listening to this episode on somebody's beach this winter, because I think that there's so many ways to travel well, travel smart today. But it's just like this. It's just sharing like the tips and tricks, right?
Well, it's interesting with the airline thing because it's like you remember the like little catalogs that would be
Yeah,
in the
back of the
seat
seat. Yeah,
bags. They always had the coolest stuff. And I remember being like, oh, I need that heated shoes, like whatever is kind of there.
that eye gel mask that I can't find anywhere else.
Yes. Okay, I want to circle back to scent because I am a huge scent person. I love a memory from a scent. I love smelling something and it kind of bringing back, whether it's a vacation or like you said, a hotel or something from your childhood.
Yeah,
And with my fragrances, I love like a masculine scent. I love something woody. I love something kind of with nuance.
sure.
Not too dissimilar from like my paint. Like I love stuff that changes scent based on the day or your body temperature.
Yeah.
So talk to us about some of your favorite like scents, whether it's the notes of the scent or the actual product.
Yeah, we're big proponents of diptyque.
Yes.
I just love how diptyque can take you to Paris without going anywhere. So we use diptyque in our house all the time. I mean, it's everything from the spray at the front door to the candle on the coffee table. So we use diptyque. Another scent that we like, one that I use quite often is there's the candle company, is it Votivo? You know, and their scent is red currant.
Oh, yes. Yes, yes, yes. Okay.
So I'm probably mispronouncing it, but yes. So their scent is one of our favorites to go to. I don't know. Sometimes I tend to be a little on the florally side. I always find it so interesting how men tend to go a little bit more feminine sometimes, and women tend to go like sandalwood and patchouli and
Mhm.
campfire. And then a man turns around and is like, "No, but this vanilla amber scented citrus cologne is kind of like what leads us, to a happy place." And one other company that I discovered, they're actually out of London, is called The Maker. And so
Okay.
another really sexy note hotel, but they have their own candle collection and they have their own cologne collection as well. They have a tiny little shop in Chelsea, and The Maker is probably like right up there with Diptyque.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, yeah, we'll definitely have to link all those and get even some samples of them because I love that idea. And I think you're right with like men's fragrance. You guys already have kind of a masculine like aura, obviously. So I feel like when you lean a little more, feminine per se, it smells just, there's more levels to it where it really smells great.
Yeah.
So
Do you get an opportunity to kind of put a signature scent in your client's home? Like, do you change that up a little bit?
we try. We've worked with 1889,
Hmm.
the candle company. They're always set up outside Varellen
Yeah,
showroom
yeah,
at High
yeah.
Point. And some of their fragrances, they're also named really kind of fun. Like one of them's called Damsel.
Cool.
And, names. So we do try to gift those a lot and allow the room sprays and really kind of try to figure out what the clients enjoy.
Yeah,
We've had a few try to install some of those fragrance systems in their homes.
sure.
Because, same thing, when you step in the door after a long day, it's nice for it to just smell and feel like home.
Yeah, and I mean, you walk into our loft and everyone's like, oh my God, what is that scent? And we actually use like one of the smaller machines, and we've got two of them, but the Edition in London is, again, one of our favorite hotels. And I figured out how to get the scent in kind of like this small little fan machine that's like hiding behind the sofa. And I like to be able to slide that stuff in and surprise a client, where whether or not it's a diptyque plug-in spread strategically throughout the house or it's a tiny little machine, because it's something that people subconsciously love but don't actually know that they need.
I agree. I love walking into somebody's space and it elevates it all.
Yeah,
It definitely elevates it. So well done for thinking of that for sure. And I think the other kind of level of elevation that you're really good at is layering textures.
thank you.
So kind of what are your favorite ways to do it? What are some of your favorite textures?
Well, I mean, it's like almost 70 degrees outside right now in New York, and the weather is all over the place. This morning it was 47, and I'm sitting here in a cashmere sweater. Um, cashmere, I would say that level of luxury and learning how to appreciate good cashmere is something that I take into even the interiors. We wrote an article, a small snippet for House Beautiful about boucle last year, and it was like, is boucle going somewhere? Is it leaving? Is it here to stay? And I was like, just look at the runway in Milan, and what you're seeing is it being elevated in a way that is not mass marketed. It is nubbier. It is maybe chunkier. It's imperfect. And so I love to encourage my clients through texture, in kind of the imperfect sense that it doesn't always have to be this super well manicured, accent chair in the corner, and that we can have a little bit of fun and that there's some whimsy with texture, and layering like the velvets and linen in the same way that you dress, right? It's like you've got a great linen outfit on, but why can't you throw a cashmere shawl over your shoulder? And I love to kind of blur those lines and translate that into the home.
No, I think that's really great. And like you were saying with like, is boucle out? I think once something does start to, hit the very mass markets and become a super affordable or fast fashion per se,
Yeah.
I don't think that means when you do it elevated, it's, incorrect. Like some of our favorite vendors have killer boucle and chunky and great just feels in different colors, like the browns and the rusts and the camels. Maybe lean against, some of the whites, but in general, like
I'm here for it.
I'm
I
here for it.
love a good mohair.
Yes.
Your boy's not cheap over here, but I love a good mohair. That's just like, I think, one of the most underrated, sexy, luxurious fabrics. And like, if we can't even do a custom sofa, I try and slide in like a mohair pillow somewhere.
And I think that's once again, it's tactile.
Yeah,
So the client's at least touching the pillow. And if your insert is a high quality, dense insert, it's an
yeah,
experience.
I I agree. I went down a rabbit hole for almost 2.5 years to find the perfect inserts. And I wanted something that was hyperallergenic. Again, living in
Yeah.
LA for 10 years, everybody was like really sensitive to like what is even living inside of their pillow. And we discovered a small upholstery company in downtown LA that does these trillium filled pillows. So they're like high density, they're heavy, they're choppable if you want to chop them, but they're hyperallergenic and they've got like really great weight and great shape.
So what's trillion?
Trillium.
What is that?
It's it's almost like a latex memory foam material that's going, and then it's like
Okay.
been broken down to create the film.
Oh, very cool,
Yeah,
which is awesome because I think we all know, like, when you sit on a pillow that is filled with down, occasionally you get poked.
yeah, and then you fluff it, right? So
Yeah.
you look at some of like our house, their sofas, some of their sofa seat cushions are actually wrapped in a trillium wrap. And so this way, when you're sitting on it, just like your memory foam mattress, it comes back to life.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
I know we work so hard on install days to make everything, like, look perfect, and if we come back 3 months later, we want it to still look great for the client,
yeah.
and that sounds like a really good product to do that for sure. Okay, so I know you pay attention to a ton of details. You're really, really good at that. You've had the opportunity to do some fun show houses, which designers always shine when they're doing, their show houses. And you're also really good at giving advice. So I would love for kind of you to give a few items that for new designers, but even seasoned designers that really like, on either coast that can help them say we're all highly affected by our surroundings. It happens.
100%.
But like as designers, what is some good just takeaways you would love for people to know?
Some good takeaways. So there was an Instagram post yesterday that cheap clients are expensive. If I'm going to leave anybody with anything on this podcast today, I think that, from show houses to good clients, bad clients, all the experiences and in between, to think that we've been doing this for almost a decade. And I've had good, bad, and indifferent, right? And there's some like life lessons that you learn along the way. Doing show houses are a really great opportunity to get yourself out there, and it really depends on the vehicle and how you're using it. Showing up daily, networking, mixing, mingling, putting your best foot forward. Show houses are not cheap, and if you can bake that into your marketing budget, and it's someplace that aligns to your brand, your business, and that you've got access to new potential business, I say yes, go for it, try it out. They're not easy. They're some of the hardest things I've ever done. And in return, I've been lucky enough to have great exposure and, land a client from a show house. Um, but at the end of the day, doing this for so long, you're learning and you're pivoting as you're going, right? I think that we're like experts at pivoting. You and I talk about this all the time. Like, your plan for 11 a.m. doesn't happen, and what are you doing? Nicole's pivoting, right? And so figure out how to pivot faster, not beat yourself up when the pivot doesn't always look the way that you planned it to look like, and know that that's okay. Um, and I think really setting your guidelines and your boundaries to be able to have what that ideal client is. I spoke on Luann's podcast a couple years ago, really challenged, and that episode challenged me because it put my business into like a framework, and I wanted to be able to start to talk about the pillars of my brand, who we stand for. But it's just like dating. We've all dated, right? We've all been there, and you've got your wish list, and that wish list should look the same for your ideal client. And why are we negotiating on some of our non-negotiables? So anyone that's listening today, I would honestly encourage you to like make that list of what your dream client looks like. And sometimes the cheaper ones will cost you more money, but the clearer you can get on your mission and your purpose and the person that you're serving, I think the easier it gets along the way.
I completely agree with everything you said. But it's also been funny, or not funny, but the economy right now. Not to get political, not to get into any of that, But we used to have like a wait list. We were turning down, a lot of projects a week. We were booking consults out 3 months.
Yeah,
But these last 6, 9 months, it's really slowed for us. And I have, as the business owner, really having to play taking not the ideal client. Not necessarily that they're awful humans or something to that extent, but
sure.
the scope of work might not be there, or the end goal might not be there, but it's expensive to run a business. We've got overhead.
Yeah.
So having to make that choice lately
Hmm.
is hard.
Yeah, it's super hard. And I'm glad that you're bringing it up because I think it's these honest conversations that are really helping people. And I think that's the stuff that we're looking for. And yeah, it's an election year. This year for small businesses, I've talked to a lot of them, has not been the cutest year, but I think that I got the whisper last year from an event planner who runs a luxury event planning company that's in the lower level underneath my office. And he was just like, I've been in business for over 30 years. We've been through a downturn in the economy. We've been through an election year. Like, tighten your bootstraps and hold on tight. And I was like, okay, Mark, like, sure. But I didn't disregard that, right? And in return, I've not I've had to say yes to certain projects that might not have the ideal scope. And maybe we're breaking things up into phase one, two, and three. We have the overall picture, but we're kind of saying, okay, we'll take half of it right now. And then, I've said no to certain things where I was like, this just is not a good fit, even though I wanted something, but I was like, that's not the something that's for me. And that's just like life and doing the work and knowing that it's going to cost me more emotional stress and all of that to say yes to this client just to take the smaller thing, even though in my gut, I know it wasn't the right fit.
And that's hard. It's easy to turn people away when, you're booking out far and everything's going smooth. But when, you're waiting for that next new build or you're really wanting that next renovation, things can appear a little shinier than they should.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that, I love that we're having this conversation because, social media, I mean, listen, I'm the master at making myself look busy, right? And I think we're all really good at that. But I think it's about being vulnerable or being honest or calling up a friend that is super busy and might be able to say, like, hey, if you've got a smaller project, could you pass that over, right? That you're not interested in. Or if it might be somebody that's not even in our industry, just to be able to ask for the business, right? And I think those are the things that make us a stronger, bigger, and better entrepreneur because you have to be able to go door knocking once in a while, right? Whether or not it's at a cocktail party or at a family friend's event, just being able to put your elevator pitch out there, knowing that the pipeline is not full. So you always have to have an eye on the pipeline because you just never know. You don't want it to go bone dry. And there are going to be moments where you're going to come close, and that's okay. But it's about what you do in that magic moment before that really happens.
I agree. And you and I had a conversation earlier this summer that was kind of about almost like taking this time where we're slower to build our personal brand.
Yeah,
And as designers now with social media and everything else, yes, we have our design firm, but what we're doing right here is building our personal brand. And you do that very, very well. So I would love for you to kind of talk through maybe some of your strategy and some of your goals.
yeah. I mean, this has been a big year for goal checking. Checking off the boxes. Wanting to be published, wanting to, increase the Instagram following. I was like so obsessed. I woke up like 4 years ago and I lost like 5,000 followers. I have no idea why. And then ever since then, I just felt like my algorithm was broken. And then I became obsessive over it and it wasn't budging. And the minute that I let go of that obsession and just figured out how to like have some fun with it and like find a little bit of like my flow, I actually really enjoy doing my own social media and figuring out the balance between my personal life and showing people how you can live this really beautiful, curated lifestyle that's enhancing and is in service to you so that you can go out and better serve the world. And that's just like identifying that has really helped me shape how we show up in publications, how my voice is being heard as a thought leader on panels and podcasts and speaking engagements. So, I really encourage anyone, no matter where you are in your brand and your business, to kind of really do a deep dive and find who's inspiring you, identify why they're inspiring you, and then kind of try and mirror yourself into your business and see if your business is actually inspiring you. And in return, then you're able to go out and inspire others.
I think that's so true. And as designers, I don't care how large your firm
No,
is, whether you're the Shea McGee's of the world who don't necessarily work on the design projects, they're still hiring you because they're seeing, Shea McGee on social media.
sure.
That's a very large, kind of example.
Yeah,
But it is, if you have a team of 5 designers at your studio, the lead designer or creative director isn't the one making all the choices, but you're still the one being hired because you are
yeah,
the lifestyle and the vibe that that client wants.
yeah.
There's some pressure there.
There's definitely some pressure there, and I just think that we're coming to the other side of the bell curve, right? Like I feel like we went through this mass explosion of like influencing, and Instagram changed the algorithm a couple years ago where these influencers, unfortunately, were no longer making the money that they were making. And it all changed. And in return, I think that it alleviated some level of pressure. But I also think going through the pandemic, it gave us as entrepreneurs an opportunity to show up authentically. And I think some of us are still holding on to that authenticity. And I think that our clients and others are responding to that. And I think that you're seeing a little bit more refined identification when it comes to people's brands.
I agree. And I think I talked about this with the Business of Home in an article a couple months ago that being in a small town's hard because if I want to just run to the grocery store at like 8:30 p.m. on a Tuesday looking like a potato, I'm going to run into somebody.
100%.
And that's hard because they kind of put a level on you're an interior designer, you're in the luxury market.
Yeah.
You're supposed to show up looking nice, not in your husband's t-shirt, ratty sweatpants, and your hair unbrushed.
Yeah. You don't get that luxury anymore.
No, and that's really hard, but I still feel showing up on stories and showing up in these other ways as your true self, is whether you're showing your pets, like, or you're showing kind of yourself sitting in the car and talking, like not making everything so perfect
Yeah.
allows people to see your true personality.
Yeah, and I think it's a tricky balance, right? And I think that again, in the sharing and going to markets and going and attending panels with those who are really being transparent about that level of like, okay, well, I'll show my kids, but I don't show my kids' face, and this is kind of how I do it, right? I love to cook. I try and find the balance of being able to curate that level of a lifestyle, and so I feel like we're trying to find that mix. Um, and I think it's just about like teaching each other, like, this is what's working, this is what's not working. When I talk on camera, I get 1,000 more views. It's a tricky thing. And I think that it's something that we're always learning how to tackle.
Everybody wants to see your face, Antonio. Don't hide it.
I'm just going to like schedule a weekly call with Nicole. So this way that you just totally boost my ego.
No, but I think it is. And I think having the friends and the people that if you were to show me something that was awful, I would tell you.
Oh, 100%.
Uh,
I agree.
but still having cheerleaders in your court, like, yes, we're all designers, but if you were to get, an award for something, or if you're getting on a panel, I've even gone to some of your panels at High Point where I'm wanting to be there to support you and to support my friends because that's what needs to happen. And I think the brands need to see it happening.
I agree. I mean, look at the call that you and I had at the beginning of the summer, right? It was just like, let's talk strategy and like be able to confide in one another about like what's working, what's not. Like, how do I tap into this thing? How do I get more of those speaking engagements? How do I maybe gain more followers? And there's so many great people that are open to sharing that level of knowledge. And I'm grateful to be able to say that I've got a handful of friends like you that we can then be able to truly ping pong across the table. Because this is a big thing. It's a big industry. It's a big business that we're trying to create. And I think in that level of vulnerability where we can actually be friends and share, and there's no gatekeeping, I think that that's like where like the magic really, really happens because that's something special. And I take that to heart. Like I don't take that lightly.
No, and I think talking to each other about whether it's, receiving warehouses, hiring PR firms, social media managers, what vendors are really helpful. Like, there's so much information in what we do, but there's also a lot of power for designers
For sure.
when we team up and we communicate or we let, vendors or those in the industry know that what they're doing is not okay
Sure.
or how they can change because there's a lot of us.
There's a lot of us. I mean, just look at your episode with Luann on a well-designed business podcast, right? Like your episode alone, I mean, inspired me. But I mean, I can't even imagine just the reach and how much knowledge you dropped in just that episode, right? And how a handful of other designers or business owners will listen to that podcast and then in return pivot or make some changes to their business.
It's wild because I got DMs for weeks,
Mm,
and it was about the time I was traveling, so I responded to everyone, but there still just blew my mind of how many people were thinking like we need to change, we need to figure something out, but it never occurred to them that they could do it themselves until, I got on there and Luann and I kind of battled back and forth with it, which was great.
yeah, I thought it was amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool what we are able to do as designers when we team together and we're open and all of that. It's really, really fun.
I love that. I agree with you.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot, but really, what is your favorite part of being an interior designer?
My favorite part about being an interior designer, I don't know, I got this whisper probably about 11 years ago, 12 years ago now, and it was to get up every single day and change the way that people live. And that mantra has kind of evolved over the last 12 years, but that really is at the core of why I love what I do. It's not easy. It's not pretty. It's not cute. We all know this. You've talked about it. It's not HGTV by any means. There's no huge production team behind this podcast, right? It's like the two of us over here struggling on the struggle bus trying to make this stuff happen. And, we're somewhere in between a cocktail party and kid pickup and, my fiance dropping things in the kitchen and barking at the UPS guy, right? But that's again the special part. For me, it's like if I can get up every single day and change the way that people live, and whether or not it's evolving to not just the client portion, but to other designers, to other business owners out there, to young professionals in the community that we're able to touch and enhance, to those that are in need as we're working, the food pantry line that's adjacent to our office. It's that core principle of like really showing that your home can be in service to you and that I am the vehicle of change, that as the designer, I am the one that is able to curate this thing, this space to be able to change the way that somebody lives, raises their kids, or hosts a dinner party. And I think that's my favorite part about being an interior designer.
That is just so cool. And I think those words coming from such a great human, I'm grateful for it. And I think that's a great way to kind of wrap up this conversation. But what I want you to do is tell everybody where they can find you. What's your website? What are your socials? What is some cool stuff you have upcoming?
Sure. So we just celebrated a Rising Star Award with the IFDA, which was like phenomenal and just like an amazing experience to see my parents sitting in the audience. It's great to be seen. It's great to be recognized. And I'm so grateful and humble to receive that with some phenomenal designers alongside of me. We're ramping up for High Point Market. We are on 2 panels talking about AI technology and pricing strategy and structure with Sandra Funk, who we absolutely love and adore. And I'm also the MC for the Diversity Advocacy Alliance's first award ceremony. So that'll be happening on Sunday evening at 5 p.m. All the details will be on my Instagram, which is Antonio Deloatch Designs, on IG, TikTok, Facebook, all of the things. And yeah, you have any questions, I'm an open book. Slide into my DMs. That's how we get things done. I'm a friend, and I'm always here to answer a question or a designer in need.
Well, congrats to all that. You emceeing that event. What a lucky group in that audience. That's going to be really, really cool.
Your mouth to God's ears. I've never emceed before, so I volunteered for it, and it's something that's passionate. That's a passion of mine. I think that knowing and learning what High Point Market used to be back in the day, with the men in suits and the roller boards and the suitcases, to women in high heels trying to make the impression just to get in the door, to not seeing Black and Latinx representation and being turned away, all of the things. And there's a level of change that's happening, and it's happening quickly. And I'm excited to be a part of a cause and an organization that's leading the change and moving the needle forward at High Point.
And I am so proud of you and so many of my friends that are part of that journey. I think it's really, really cool.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you for being here today. I appreciate you
No.
sticking through some of the technical issues we started with, but thank you so much.
No hurricane can stop us, right? We've got Wi-Fi, we've got life. It is not going to be perfect. It's not going to be pretty. But the one thing that I love about you is the way that you show up in the world as a mom, as a boss, as a leader. So continue to do that. Your smile lights up a room, and I am honored to be launching this podcast with you and for all of your friends to enjoy it. And I can't wait for this to take off and to just become something amazing.
You're the best. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Highly Affected by Her Surroundings. I truly appreciate you taking the time to join us today. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you have a moment, please rate and review the podcast. It helps others discover the show, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. For more behind-the-scenes content and design inspiration, follow us on social media. You can find me, Nicole, at Nixon Interiors, and the podcast at Highly Affected by Her Surrounding. We'll be sharing updates, sneak peeks, and exclusive offers you won't want to miss. Plus, if you want a recap or more details from today's episode, you can find the show notes at arnixoninteriors.com under the Highly Affected by Her Surroundings tab. Once again, thank you for your support, and I can't wait to connect with you on social. See you next time.